The book ends at the Coney Island parachute jump. When you were a child growing up in Brooklyn, New York, did you ever go on this ride?
No.
No.
I once went on a roller coaster. I didn't live in Coney Island. Coney Island is very far away from anything, especially if you live in the Bronx. Even if you live in lower Manhattan, it takes about an hour and 15 minutes to get on a subway ride to go to Coney Island. I never went there as a child.
You grew up in the Bronx.
I grew up in the Bronx, yeah. But I knew about the parachute jump, and in fact, the parachute jump was part of Insect Dreams, because one of the really nice chapters, actually I don't even know if it's in here, because this book went in at 900 pages, came out at 500 pages. It might be cut, but the parachute jump started out at the 1939 World's Fair, and it was originally situated in Queens at the World's Fair, and then they moved it to Coney Island. So it's in here as a character, the parachute jump, in Insect Dreams, and then it showed up as a character in Coney Island, and in Julius. And of course, this is a book about rising and falling, rising and falling. And it's the perfect metaphor for that duo. And Julius, as a child, rides it with his father, who is a very, very good pedagogue, and helps Julius to understand how these rides work and all that, and turns Julius into a physicist. So it wound out, as he realized that he could not escape. The plot of the book is simply that he decides and writes a letter to Gecko that what's happening as a result of the use of his invention, this phony rapture business, is horrible, and he's going to spill the beans and tell the world what's really going on. Well, that isn't anything Gecko wants to hear about. So they start tracking him, and they're going to kill him. And a lot of the book is he's on the lam. Right? And he realizes that he can't get away as Gecko closes in on him and has eyes everywhere. The Central Intelligence Corporation is following him. And so he just goes back to Coney Island, to the land of his birth and childhood. He climbs up the parachute jump, and he waits to be raptured on the parachute jump. It's a very nice end to the book.
So we don't want to tell our viewers what actually happens there.
Yeah, no, what's the problem? I mean, he's raptured, and I take him actually through death until his consciousness begins to, Gecko is not going to let people like that pursue the truth. And that's a metaphor. It's the same thing as in Skulk. That plot that Gronsky and Skulk have to have a teaching moment for America is not going to be allowed to happen. Julius's confession is not going to be allowed to happen. Probably our work on 9/11 is not going to be allowed to happen, etc. Not that they'll have to kill us. They don't have to. The controls are, I don't feel personally in danger for being out there on this stuff. But, if the 9/11 stuff ever got out in a big way, then I think the spokespeople would be more targeted. But I don't think they are now.
Mm. You have stated that the Faustian bargain is a recurring theme in your books. Yeah. Can you explain how it plays out in the two books that we have discussed?
Yeah. Well, my undergraduate and my graduate education were in science. And I feel like I know how to read scientific papers. I know about the scientific method. I know the history of science. I know, these are areas that I'm familiar with. I studied physics. I studied math. I can deal with this material. And I left science to do something that seemed more humanistic. But I'm still interested in the way science determines the world. And especially the way, not so much science, but technology, and this relationship between science and technology, and that's something called the technological imperative, where you follow the technological road, no matter where it leads. And if you're a scientist and not an engineer, you say, I'm just doing basic research. And the story in Insect Dreams is a lot about following the technological imperative from the original discoveries of radiation in the end of the 19th century, radium and X-rays, through, once we had the idea of radiation, through the development of atomic physics in the 30s, to its expression in the atomic bomb in 1945. And that I think of as a Faustian bargain. What is a Faustian bargain? Is you make a bargain with the myth, you make a bargain with the devil to be able to do and know everything you want to do and know. And at the end of it, you go to hell. You are taken to hell. You pay for it with your soul, whatever. That there is a level of payment for this knowledge. And there is probably some knowledges that it would be better not to know. Like, it would be clearly better not to have command of the energies of atomic energy. The atomic bombs were trivial compared to the hydrogen bombs we have now. Clearly better not to know that stuff. Okay, but we were doing research, and the research A led to B, and B led to C, and C led to D, and nobody except one scientist, Leo Szilard, and if there's any hero besides Gregor in the Insect Dreams, it's Szilard, and if there's any real hero of the Manhattan Project and the whole atomic thing, it's Szilard. People don't know about him. He saw the consequences of where this was going. He warned against it. He tried to get he was, in the Manhattan Project. He tried to get the other scientists to stop doing what they were doing. Especially after we found out that Hitler did not have a bomb project going. And then he said, look, there's no more reason. The raison d'etre for going ahead with the Manhattan Project in the first place was this scare about Germany developing an atomic bomb. And he wrote the letter. Szilard wrote the letter, gave it to Einstein to sign. So this famous letter from Einstein to FDR was actually Szillard's letter. And there are, the pictures of them sitting together with this letter. So he felt personally responsible for this. He wanted it to stop. And he had the notion that this is a Faustian bargain. This is a foolish pursuit of a technological imperative. And I think a lot of our culture is that. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. Very often it's profit-driven. The whole automobile has been a Faustian bargain. It's changed everything about geography and planetary ecology and work patterns and family and farming. And I mean, this really, and it's out of control. And that was another Faustian bargain. And I'm interested in the Faustian bargain because I'm interested culturally in how science is used and abused and how people who don't understand science make decisions about science. It's part of the cultural problems in this country and in general in the West.
So in Skulk, where's the Faustian bargain in Skulk?
The Faustian bargain in Skulk is not, I don't think it's a major theme. It is a major theme in here because because Julius is working on one of those inventions that in fact destroys the world to some degree, this secret anti-gravity device. So if there's a scientist in it, in my books, it's usually working on some Faustian bargain. I mean, in this book about aging, where the 65-year-old becomes 17, there's a plastic surgeon who is a Faust figure, Mephistopheles figure, and he figures out a way to turn this 65-year-old into a 17-year-old. So that whole business about the rejuvenology, that's Faustian. And I think you will be a great example when you're 150 years old, and you'll be the Faustian bargain.
But if I get rejuvenated and I get to be 200 years old,
yeah.
Why is my soul going to hell?
Faust said the same thing. And, I'm not going to, all I'm saying is that you will discover that working at these levels against the natural order of things, right, at these levels, has unpredictable consequences. What would be wrong with a car? Car is terrific, you know. It takes me 15 minutes instead of 3 hours to get somewhere. I need to go there for my business. Now I can have a business. Now I can bring people to the hospital, you know, and get them there in time. What's wrong with a car? Well, we found out, didn't we? And we wouldn't have predicted it. So a lot of this stuff. On the other hand, you know, there's certainly technological achievements that don't get into that level of disturbing the universe. And those are not probably Faustian bargains.